Hello everyone, this is Professor Mohammad Shahid Ansari from Maharashtra College of Arts, Science and Commerce. Welcome to the lecture series of Android programming. Today we will begin with the session number 5. In this session we discuss intent class with an example. In Android, intent class is one of the very important class because this class is responsible for interconnecting the activities. The topics to be covered in this chapter are, in this session are, what is intent, what are the types of intents, Android example for implicit intent, Android example for explicit intent. Now, first we will see what is intent. In Android, intent is a message that is passed between the activities. Android application consists of multiple activities. Suppose I want to pass the message from one activity to another activity, the intent class is used. Android uses an intent for communicating between the components of an application and also from one application to another application. Intent class is used for two purposes. Either it is used to allow the communication between the components of the application, or it is also possible to connect one application to another application using intent. Example, intent facilitate you to redirect your activity to another activity on occurrence of any event. The user need to perform some event. On the basis of that, the Android application will redirect the user from one activity to another activity. Intent uses a method start activity. This is a method available in Android which is used to start the another activity within the current activity. The syntax: intent is a class, therefore we first create a object of a intent. See, this is an intent class. Name of the object is intent equals to new. New operator is used to allocate the memory for intent object. To call or to create an intent object, we call the get application context method of the activity. Intent constructor has two parameters. First is the name of the context application, that is your get application context, and second parameter is the name of the activity where we want to pass the control, that is your second activity dot class. This is your second activity where we want to transfer the control from current activity to second activity. After creation of the intent object, we will start with the activity and pass the intent object as a parameter. This is the syntax to create an activity in the Android. In the above example, foreground activity is getting redirected to the another activity, that is your second activity.java. Why? Because dot class file is created using a .java file. Get application context will return the context for your foreground activity. This is the purpose of get application context method. Now there are two types of intent. First is your explicit intent and second is your implicit intent. Explicit intents are used to connect the application internally. In explicit intent, we use the name of the component which will be affected by the intent For example, if you want to know the class name, then we can navigate the app from one activity to another activity using intent. So this is basically used to connect two or more activities or services or broadcast receiver and so on. This is the purpose of explicit intent. Now moving to the second, this is the syntax. This is the syntax of explicit intent, which is same as the previous one. That is your general syntax. Intent, the name of the intent object equals to new intent, get application context, second activity name, and we have to start the activity. Now second is your implicit intent. Implicit intent, we do not need to specify the name of the component. In this, we are not connecting two or more activities. What we will do in implicit object then? We just specify the action which has to be performed, and further this action is handled by the component of the another application. The basic example of implicit intent is to open any web page within the current activity. Suppose I want to open a web page, web browser within the current activity. In that case, we will use implicit intent. The syntax is intent object equals to new intent. In the bracket, do not write get application context, just write intent dot action underscore view, and this is the parameter used for implicit intent. Now we will call set data. Intent object dot set data is a method of intent class. URI uniform resource indicator dot parse, we are passing the website name as a parameter of parse. There is your https://www.abhiandroid.com. Now when you will click on the button, then it will open the website or a web page within the current activity. It will not transfer the control to the second activity. Using this intent object, we can start the activity. So in this type of implicit intent, we will open a page within the current activity. Now example, the examples of implicit and explicit intent. See, this is an example. Practically, how do we practically implement the implicit and explicit intent? So this is an example where we are creating a Android application. Within that application, we will create an empty activity. Then within empty activity, this is the code. Now first step, design the UI of activity underscore main.xml. This is your main activity. Whenever you will execute the Android application, the first activity is your activity underscore main.xml. In this, we are setting the layout, drag and drop the layout from the palette. Then this is the relative layout. Now in relative layout, we are taking a text view to display the text. In this, we are setting the text as, if you click on explicit example, we will navigate to the second activity within the app, and if you click on implicit example, home page will open in the browser. This is just a message so that we can understand what is happening on the clicking of button 1 and button 2, and these are the attributes of the text view. Now there are two buttons. Button 1 is for explicit intent. Button 2 is for implicit intent. This is the .xml file for the main activity class. Now every activity, now step 2, now moving to the step 2, now we will create or design a second activity class .xml. In this, we are just using a text view bus. That is the control available on this activity, text view. So within first activity, we have a text view and two buttons. Within second activity, we have a text view only. Now moving to the second part, moving to the next part, that is your step number 3. On click event. We will generate on click event. Why? Because user will click on button, either button 1 or button 2. This is the event file, that is your main activity.java, which is responsible for handling the event. Event handling is performed using this file. In this, we are first of all defining the button object. This is your button. At this place, we are only declaring the button object, that is your explicit button, implicit button. Here we are initializing the button using the method find view by id and r.id.explicit intent. This is the id given in the XML file. Same way, find view by id r.id.implicit intent. First the declaration of the button and then initialization of both the button. Now third step, we will generate the event on click method. This is your on click method of button, first button, that is your explicit underscore btn dot set on click listener. Button will generate an on click event. There is a listener which is responsible for listening the event generated by the button, that is your on click listener. Therefore we are setting the on click listener on the button. Now within this there is a method called as on click method. The body of the on click method is this. Now in this method we are creating the intent object and passing the name of the second activity, that is your second activity, which we already has created, and along with this we start the activity. Now on the clicking of button, what will happen? It will start the activity, that is your intent. Within intent we have a second activity dot class that is already that already has created. Now what happened in button 2? In button 2, this blue part is for button 2. Now again on this button we are setting the listener same, calling the on click method, and in this case we are defining the intent object without specifying the second activity. Why? Because we will only open the browser within the current activity. Therefore we are not using get application context, and we are not passing the parameter as a second activity name. This is the syntax for creating a implicit intent. Now we are setting the data into the implicit object using set data method, uri.parse and the web page name, and using this information we start the activity. This is the second activity that is called within the current activity. First, this is the code for the first button and this is the code for the second button. Now moving to the second activity, we already have a second activity. Now on the second activity.java we are just printing the toast message, a small message that will display we are moved to the second activity. On the clicking of the first button we are starting the second activity. When the second activity will appear, it will display a message we are moved to the second activity for the short period of time. Okay? Now the output of the code is like this. First there is a two buttons, explicit intent button and implicit X. When you click on the explicit intent button, it will redirect to the second activity. This is an active second activity. Now when you call a when you click on the implicit intent, then it will open the web browser or a web page within the current activity. This is the basic use and basic example of activity, the implicit activity and explicit activity. I hope you understand this session. Thank you so much.